Ready? Thank you. Great. All right. This meeting is now called to order. Welcome to our board meeting. Thank you for being here today. Ms. Brooks is traveling out of the country and will not be able to join us. I've asked Mr. Hessing to serve as chairman of the Audit, Compliance, and Management Review Committee in her place. Since we did not have committee meetings yesterday, there will not be consent agendas for consideration. As we move through the agenda, individual committee chairs will present items for consideration, and I will conduct voting of the full board. Are there any questions about how we're going to proceed? Great. Ms. Gaynor, please introduce our visitors.
Okay, we're going to see how I do today. Everybody's kind of spread out here. I'm going to start back here with Maria Pena, who is with is the outgoing SGA president. We have David Carlston, who is chair of the Faculty Senate. Newman Long, who is chair of the Staff Senate. Jacob Warren with the SGA. Barry Maka, our general counsel. Lee Kittle, who is our internal auditor. Kyle Owen, who is Associate Vice President for Facility Services, Vice President Marilyn Foley, Chris Stovall, who is our Controller, Vice President Tony Vidmar. We're going to go back to this corner. And this is Herbert McCullough IV. We have with us Linda Vesey, Ellie Gunderson, who is the incoming SGA President. Keith Lamb, who's Vice President of Student Affairs. Provost James Johnston. Kyle Williams, he is our Athletic Director. Okay, here we go. I'm going to see. This is Natalia Zamora, Salvatore Capitosta. No. I'm going to get this. You are Georgia DeBose and Dakota Tollison. Then we have with us Steve Garrison there with the Model UN. Then we have Cindy Ashlon, who is the Executive Assistant to the President.
Well done. As a reminder, this meeting is streamed live on the internet, so please silence your devices. Before we begin today, I want to acknowledge Shayla Owens, our student regent this past year. This is Shayla's final board meeting, and we want to thank her for her service to the university. Shayla, you've been an outstanding student regent and represented the student body extremely well. I thank you for your service, and we wish you well as you finish your graduate studies and your career. We also have some visitors today who are members of the MSU Model UN team. Dr. Steve Garrison, one of their advisors, is going to tell us about the great accomplishments of these students this year, and they will introduce themselves.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to show off our fantastic students. Go up there.
Go sit so you can be on the web.
Gotcha, thank
Yeah.
you. Just wanted to take a moment to show off our fantastic students that we have. This year was fairly historic as far as Model United Nations goes. We came back with the Outstanding Delegation Award, which means that literally every person excelled in every aspect of the competition. We have our head delegate and three students that won Outstanding Position Paper Awards that are done for their research ahead of time. And we also had a couple of students that won Outstanding Delegate Awards, which is their operations at the actual committee. So I'll let them get up here and tell you about their fantastic accomplishments. Okay.
Go on up there.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Salvatore Capotosto. I'm a chemistry major. I'm from Italy, and this Model United Nations was a wonderful opportunity to confront myself and confront us with students from not only from the United States, but from all over the world. There were people from Italy, people from England, Germany, all the continents were represented in this competition. And there were big schools, and the nice fact is that we were there, yes, to compete, but to also having fun competing with them. And we did a good competition, and the main aspect that we were always smiling, and we brought accomplishment, but with a smile and with the professional aspect that I think is important. Humbleness, smiling, and be confident is the basic of succeeding. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for all the students.
Hi, I'm Natalia Zamora. I was actually the head delegate for Model UN this year. Team Iceland did great, and we're all very proud, but thank you so much for all your support throughout the years. I know this is my second time being a Model UN student, and we can only continue to do better.
I'm Georgia DeBose. I'm a biology major, and we had so much fun in New York doing the competition and everything. And I do have to shout out to Herb because we did go visit the actual Icelandic delegation there. And Herb had such detailed questions that he stumped the delegate. He did a pretty good job researching.
Hi, I'm Dakota Tollison. I'm also a biology major, and I would also like to thank you guys so much. It was a really great opportunity. When Dr. Beebe approached me about joining a team, I wasn't really sure because I don't know anything about international affairs, to be quite honest with you. But I had a really good time. My partner Brendan and I, who's not here, we were one of the teams that won an outstanding position paper award, and we were really shocked because this was both of our first times, and they called our name to win the paper award. We were like, what? But yeah, it was a really great opportunity, and I'm really sad actually that I'm graduating in December and I'm not going to be able to do it again. So.
Hello, I am Herbert McCullough IV. I am a political science senior, and I would like to thank everybody here as well as MSU for their unconditional support for the Model UN program, and if it wasn't for your support, we wouldn't be here. And to continue, and we wouldn't win our outstanding delegate position if it wasn't for the unconditional support that we have from MSU as well as the students and faculty that support us. Thank you so much.
So congratulations, guys. We're super proud of everything that you guys have accomplished and that you continue to do. We wish you the best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, before we move into the meeting, I should also mention, I know the Regents and the administration are aware of this, but this will be my final meeting as member of this Board of Regents. I am relocating my practice to Florida, so I won't be in the state of Texas. So I'm going to resign my position. I do want to let everybody know, like, the last 8 years have been just a phenomenal experience. I can't tell you how amazing it has been just personally, because I got to be a part of, an amazing institution with amazing people and amazing students. And so if I've contributed in any way, it's really just to be a part, to see the great things that you guys have accomplished. So I appreciate that very much. I feel very welcome in this family, and it'll be a part for me. So if you ever want to go to Florida, please look me up. Place to stay. So we provided an opportunity for public comment concerning agenda items at the beginning of each meeting, and no one has signed up. So we will move on with our agenda. Our first item is 18-82, the approval of the February committee and full board meeting minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they will stand approved as presented. Item 18-83 is the investment update. It's time for our yearly update by American National Bank. Dr. Foley, please introduce our guest.
Well, we have our team today, the same team we've seen in the past, and hopefully they got some good news for us. And I know, Cindy, you want to pull up their presentation?
And you all know the drill to stand up there.
So hopefully with the market doing so well, Jeff, maybe
We will.
our investments have done the same.
We've been here before. I'll let Linda make opening comments and introductions. Go from there.
Well, I know you're really tight on schedule and you're much more interested in what Jeff has to say, but I will reintroduce myself. I'm Linda Wilson, and I'm the relationship manager for the endowment account and some other Midwestern accounts as well. This is one of the joys of my work life, working with Midwestern. As the relationship manager, account administrator, I'm the go-to person, kind of the intermediary. I furnish reports for people around campus, try to get you the information you need, coordinate distributions, whatever goes along with the administrative end of the account and sort of the mechanics. Also in that, and in the course of doing that, my relationship, I want to stay informed on any changing investment policy, distribution schedules. I try to glean information, both obvious and maybe not quite so obvious, to bring back to the investment group so that we feel like we really are in tune with you and know our customer well and what they are doing on your behalf. And I do want to take this opportunity to tell you, all the years of doing it, what makes it such a joy is your staff and my relationships with your staff. Everybody I deal with in every department, they're committed to your mission. They're professional, proficient, but they do it in a way that shows their obvious commitment to the students and the mission and enthusiasm, and it makes it a true joy and a real delight. You were very well represented across the board, and I've gotten to work with lots of departments and areas through the years. So our goal at American National Bank, both in the trust department and bank-wide, and you've seen the slide, and we've talked in the past about our relationship, the crossovers with the number of students and alums, and our support for you. But our real goal is to continue to support you in your mission. I want you, encourage you please to let me know where we may be falling down on that. Any information that will help us do a better job for you, encourage you, please let me know. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and Kurt.
Yep, I don't know, I'll start. We have 2 graduates, or you have 2 graduates tomorrow. Young man in Jackson, Florida, I just gave him an offer letter today, so I'm happy about that. And then Abby White, Jackson has a degree, he's a DBA finance, and Abby White will have a degree in accounting. So I'm excited. Abby's been with the bank a number of months, and actually Jackson's been in for two semesters and picked him up full time. So we're excited about that and having those 2 young people in my department. So this is just a brief slide kind of going through the investment process we do. If you look at the portfolio, we have roughly 50 individual equity names. We tend to use individual names except for international and small cap, where we use ETFs. Same thing on the fixed income side or bond side, we have individual issues for it. And so what we do is do a screening process, and then the other thing we do on the back side is once we have those names, it's easy to buy a stock. But what do you do when the market goes down like we had in February and determine what we're going to keep and what we're going to punt out? And so occasionally we'll start selling some things if we think, the market's kind of tipping over and we want to protect those gains. And we really, what's foremost in our mind is protecting the value of the endowment for the university. So that's just a very brief slide. So what I'm going to do is like Kurt talk about the fixed income piece of it, and then I'll take it back up with the equity side.
Okay. And based on the investment policy that Linda's talked about, we have what's called a growth with income is the investment objective that y'all discussed, and that is typically the targets are 65% in equity securities and 32% in fixed income securities. Currently, as of March 31st, is the day that you have for this presentation. We're over allocated to equities and underweighted to taxable bonds. And that's by design, because as rising interest rates that we all know are moving up with the Federal Reserve, also shrinking their balance sheet, beginning to, your rate's going to go down on your yield. And so if we go down to fixed income analysis and look at it, first, like Jeff said, when we look at individual names, we only buy investment grade securities, which is BBB and above, when we purchase them, and then we use third-party ratings with a company called Egan-Jones and also S&P and Moody's to see if they get downgraded. And 48% are in BBB plus, which this means they have adequate obligation. They can pay their obligations adequately, and then they have really low risk of default. One thing I'd like to point out under fixed income characteristics, we have average modified duration of 4.61. What this is, it measures your price sensitivity to rising interest rates and how that affects your prices. And so this is based on a 1% increase. So if rates were to increase by 1%, your bond portfolio, the market price, the market value of it would drop by 4.6%. And then since we haven't seen at one time the Federal Reserve look at, say, we're going to raise rates by 1%, they generally do 0.25% or 25 basis points. We have an impact, and so with the service that we have, we can look and say you're going to see a market value change of about 1% downward, which is $31,000 on the fixed income side. We do see rates going up. In June, most likely they will raise rates again by 25 basis points. But we think that with inflation being curbed with the new CPI, that we don't really believe, we believe the equity market will be able to absorb that rising interest rate easier, and we can reinvest at the higher rate. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to talk about the equity characteristics.
Thank you, Kurt. So on this, it just gives an evaluation between Midwestern's bond or equity characteristics and the S&P 500 characteristics. So it's the normal ones: cash flow, price to cash flow, price to earnings. You know, we typically have companies that are a little bit cheaper. You know, price to book's a little bit less than the general market. Return on assets and equity are higher. And so on the other side, you see the dividend yield's a little bit less there at the top. And that's primarily because, you know, it's more growth companies than, say, dividend-paying stock companies. Market cap's about the same. Sharpe ratio, which is the excess return that we're taking, is right at the market or actually below it. And the beta is just slightly more because we do have some of those growth names. We have a little bit higher standard deviation, which means a little bit more risk, a little bit more volatility in the portfolio. But those are generally just the characteristics of the portfolio. So go to the next one, Kurt. This is what Marilyn, Dr. Foley, was mentioning, wanting to hear some good news. So if you look at the last 12 months, they're at the top. The endowments returned over 10% for the last 12 months versus a class-banded benchmark of 9.8%. And so that class-banded benchmark is taking into consideration all the stocks, all the bonds, both small cap and just all the various characteristics benchmarks. So you can see, you know, we were above it for the last 12 months. I do want to point out in 2014, you can see this is a cumulative return graph at the bottom. And what happened in 2014 is, you know, at that time we were more heavily weighted in oil and gas names, commodity names. And that was really 2014, you know, Mr. Ayers will tell you, wasn't a great year. So neither was for us, but we have returned, you know, as far as the trend with the benchmark, getting back to that point. So very happy about that. Just thinking about the portfolio over the last year, change in the market value has been over $500,000. So we started back on April 1st of last year at $8.8 million. Had some good dividend payments. Change in market value was over $500,000, and we ended at $9,380,000. So, and actually, as of last night, we've actually picked up some more. You know what's happened with the stock markets recently, just the increase. As of last night, we're at $9,500,000 is the total value of the endowment. So we've gotten some price appreciation. Fortunately, we didn't kick out the names that were really going down and pop back up. So we were good there, and actually quite pleased with the performance this past year. And I hope you are too of the endowment. So that's where we are right now. I'd open it up to any questions you might have specifically about anything you saw in the materials, or if you'd like further clarification on anything that we presented today. We know your time is short today.
Great. Well, thank you for being here and all your efforts in relation to improving that performance and keeping a good eye on the market for us. So thank you.
And Kurt's a talented alum too.
He is. Yeah.
I'm actually in the MBA program, so I don't have much left.
Yeah, he is. And so Kurt's been a good hire for us. All the Knoblochs, they seem to be making their mark here at Midwestern. So that's really good. So
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time listening.
Item 18-84, modification in the MSU organization chart. The board book includes a new organization chart and an explanation of the changes that have been made. Dr. Shipley, please comment on these changes.
Just would like to point out that this really indicates our focus on growth, these new changes to the organizational chart. And so you see the Vice President for Enrollment Management coming in, and so admissions, financial aid, and now also the Registrar's Office will be in that bailiwick. And then we noticed as we got out and started interfacing with community colleges that we were missing a leadership role in a director of outreach, which is what a lot of community colleges have who want to come our way. And so we asked Pam Morgan to take that on, and then we took the pieces that she was overseeing and embedded them more closely into the provost's office, so you can see the divisions there. And so I just think what this will do, and I hope this time next year we'll see some results, this will make us better equipped to quickly and efficiently reach out to new populations of students.
Thank you, Dr. Shipley. This item is presented as a point of information only. We'll move on to the committee items. Please remember, anyone can make motions or provide a second, and all regions should vote on actions. Different than when you pass. Executive committee items, item -18, 18-85, strategic plan update. The work of strategic planning committee has continued and update information is provided in the board book. Dr. Johnston, please comment on the work of the committee and steps moving forward.
Good morning, thank you. You have the work of the committee over the last year in prioritizing and organizing the strategic plan. Just a little bit about where we are now. Marilyn and I are working on putting actual numbers to some of these items and documenting our progress so far. I think you'll see in particular progress on a number of these items, particularly the high and medium categories. Some were part of the signature initiatives that I coordinated with Dr. Shipley in the strategic plan, so those are moving forward, as well as a number of other areas on campus. A couple of examples that quickly come to mind. Our first bridge program that are addressing some of our most at-risk students will begin this in summer 2. We have reorganized the Academic Success Center to task for tutoring and academic support programs, which seen a very positive results in that in the fall semester. I have the spring numbers. I don't have those yet, but very positive movement in that area as well. Also see some of the online coursework and programming that we are working on through Flower Mound and our outreach area, so it kind of reflects back on restructuring Dr. Morgan's area and those things. So I think I have a lot of movement, a lot of positive movement already, and we'll take the committee's work and organize and prioritize that further, put dollar amounts to it, and look at that. I think Dr. Shipley has planned for that for our summer retreat of cabinet, so we'll continue our organization there.
Does anyone have questions related to this item? Well, this item is presented for information only and no action is necessary. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Item 18-86, campus construction update. The board book includes project status report and the report on sworn construction projects. Additionally, Mr. Owen has photographs of current projects to show. Mr. Owen?
Thank you. Start with the health science building. You probably remember this rendering showing this is LJR and this is the western base of the health science building. This is what it looked like last fall up to about mid-December, and this is what it looked like a couple of weeks ago. Since this photograph's been taken, they've also constructed all the columns on the south half, and actually just this morning they poured about 75% of this, so they're almost through with the slab itself, which is a big deal because then we're not slowed down by weather, or if we are, it's just a day. It's not 2 or 3 days because of mud. We're doing what's going on as planned. As far as we've also got the quad. This is a rendering of it, bounded by Bridwell, Health Science, McCoy, and Dillard. This is standing at the northeast corner, looking back toward McCoy. This is the quad itself. It kind of has a xeriscape, West Texas landscaping, if you will. There's a water feature in the middle of it with 4 horses that will run through it, although they are not part of the current funding for it, but eventually we hope to get there. And there'll be an extension of the Jesse Rogers Promenade for students to walk on and for emergency vehicular traffic. And that, I should say that project should start here in the next several weeks. And there's an agenda item on it. We also have the Texas Accessibility, EDA, and Fire Marshal upgrades project. There's a lot going on, a lot of small things on this. These are the 2 biggies that I'm going to show you guys. First being the stairwell extension on the south side of the building. We've since this picture is taken, they finished the weatherproofing all the way down and have bricked up about half of it. And at Paint Fine Arts, similar structure going up in addition to an elevator. They've since added the slab for that. We've staged a lot of material in to be able to start erecting that for the next several weeks. On Monday, we will start the Moffett Phase 1 renovation work, and it involves the installation of an elevator on the north side of the building, as well as the renovation of all 6 of the public restrooms. And it's a complete gut job on those, of ripping out all that new tile, put in. We can say some. Yeah. I realize this isn't going to start till the fall, but just kind of remind you that the Moffett renovation Phase 2 will start September, October time frame. It'll include updated finishes, several group study lounges or pods, as we call them, be added, improved wayfinding, new carpet, moving stacks away from the windows that are on the east side of the building so the students they like to be able to see out while they're studying, and improved Wi-Fi outlets and such. So it should be a much better place to study about a year and a half from now. On Monday, again, we'll start the reconstruction of lots 3 and 6 in. That's due south of Prothrow Yeager, and this is central plant. Construction should be completed by the time students come back to class in August. We'll also be extending right here is the TP Drive or the Jesse Rogers Promenade. We'll extend that south to Nakona, which is the street that's right out here. And although a lot of that won't start till about August 1st, because we need to leave part of it in place to be able to get the heavy equipment back to the Fine Arts elevator area. So it will extend probably into September to some extent, but it won't be near as obtrusive as all this, and this parking lot will be available. Lifetime classes usually in. As you recall, y'all approved the purchase of the Eureka Circle property at the last board meeting, and we're converting it for the police department. This is what the lobby looked like right before we purchased it. This is where we are now. We're in the process of removing several of the exam tables and such, refinishing the walls, repainting the interior. That was kind of minor updates, but it should be ready by August 1st for the police to move in. And at the last board meeting, we were about 2 or 3 weeks out from completing the Sunwatcher Clubhouse for the Housing Administration. We did finish that up, and they moved in early March. Took some common area spaces, created a couple offices and workspace, and probably the biggest thing was we took out a exercise room and converted it to a conference room. We also, over the last several months, have been working on a lifelong learning center at 2527 Hempstead. We painted all the interior spaces, and there were a lot of cabinets and such in there, and replaced about a third or half of the flooring in it. Looks a lot better than it used to. Did some minor repairs on some of the wood and soffits around the exterior, so it's good to go. The only thing left is some landscaping work in the backyard. Over the course of the next month, we should complete that. The IT was adding some drops in it for Wi-Fi and such this week, so in the next few weeks we hope to start moving furniture in there. And when the housing office moved out of Haywood, this was their area, we converted it to the language lab, and we took out the door that was right there. It got moved over to the other side of the column. We also added a window in that space. There were 3 offices behind that we took them all out and created one big room. You can kind of see through the window. And we've since added the furniture in here, and the IT is currently fixing up the PCs so that it'll be operational by the 1st of June. And that's it. Any questions?
Does the Lifelong Learning Center include ADA compliance?
No, it does not.
So do we need to do that in the future?
We should, but it's an expensive adventure just because
That's what I was thinking.
pretty much every one of the doorways in there are not wide enough.
Is that an issue for us?
I don't know that we have any necessarily physically challenged people that are going to participate. I guess it could be, although main entrance is, I think, makes, the ADA has 32-inch clearance, and the first couple rooms are very large with no doors on them. It's just a cased opening, so the primary areas that public would access are not, shouldn't have any restrictions.
I asked that the investment try to be as resource neutral as possible, and we've invested a lot already.
Right.
And so we're waiting for them to get up and running and have tuition coming back and see if the demand for the service is what we think it could be before we completely adjust the house.
I thought
Because
we had a
we-
requirement to make things ADA compliant when we made the
If you
modification.
don't spend more than $50,000, you don't have to update it.
Okay,
But
thank you. That's all.
that has to be on improvements. You can do maintenance such as painting, but we couldn't tear out walls and make bigger spaces and spend over $50,000 without having to.
Thank you.
Anyone else, questions for items? Well, this item is presented for information only and no action is necessary. Thank you, Mr. Owens. Item 18-87, the capital expenditure plan report, the MP1 for 2019 through 2023. Each year, the coordinating board requests an update of the university's 5-year plan for new construction, repair and rehabilitation projects, information resource projects, and property purchases. A copy of the proposed MP1 is shown in your board book. Mr. Owen, please review this item.
Sure. As you stated, the coordinating board requires us to submit a list of projects every year. It's projects that we think we might get to. They're not ones that you have approved or they guarantee funding for. It's strictly just a wish list. They want to know that we've thought about it and we have a plan should funding become available for some of them. And as you see, the largest item is potentially a TRB issue with flow and science renovation.
Before we discuss further, can I have a motion to approve the MP1 as presented? A second?
Second.
Is there any discussion in relation to what's being proposed? Well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18-88, the Health Sciences and Human Services Landscaping and Parking Project Approval Request. Mr. Owen, please review this item and recommendation.
Sure, we recently bid out the health science landscaping, the quad area, and 2 extensions to the Jesse Rogers Promenade. We got the bids back last week, and we're planning on moving forward with the landscape around health science, the quad, and the northern section of the Jesse Rogers Promenade extension, which is the area due east of McCoy, Martin. And we asking authorization to go ahead and move forward with that. That is less than the budgeted amount here.
Well, before we discuss further, could I have a motion to approve this item as presented?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion in relation to this? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18-89, the Finance of Facilities Complex. In February, we authorized the administration to move forward with the use of sites presented for moving facility services and to begin the design process. Since that time, the administration has developed an interim revised plan. Dr. Foley, please present this plan and the administration's recommendation.
If you remember, I presented you the financial ratios last go around, and one of the big takeaways from that presentation is our level of debt right now. And we've got several projects that possibly could have been financed through debt. I'm really working very hard not to have to issue any debt. And so one of the creative ways we came up with was because the police now are moving into the new facility in Eureka, they were going to go into the Bridwell building on the west side of the Bridwell building. But we presented to you, I think last time too, that facilities will be relocated adjacent to Bridwell Hall across the street of the LJR. So one of the ideas was to go ahead and move the administration of facilities into Bridwell. That would, it's already paid for by a TRB, so we would not require building a brand new building. And then all we would need to do is the shops. The shops could be done through HEAF dollars, and we could save up the HEAF over several years. if we're really frugal, and pay cash basically for the workshops. This also would allow us to delay working on Daniel for a few years, and then that would allow us to get more of the donations in, the time donations in on that project. So we could again pay pretty much cash for that as we go. So we're proposing this as a solution to get the various projects done without issuing debt, and saving a lot of money as far as interest that we would have had to pay on any bonds and the issuance cost on the bonds. So that's our proposal to you. It's a little different than what you saw the last few meetings. We proposed different options to you, but this was a way to get this done and not issue debt. So any questions you have?
How long would it delay the work on Daniel's other things? Push your time out, understand that.
Right, it'll push it out maybe half a year to a year, because there's a domino effect. You can't get in Daniel till facilities moves and et cetera. So the delay will only be that facilities administration has to wait to get into Bridwell. And Bridwell, we can't get in there until the health science building is done and health sciences moves out of Bridwell. So that's the delay versus building right away on the Hampstead location.
But Dr. Follet was with us when we approached the foundations about this project, and Tony and I were very clear that as just as the pledge could extend over several years for the convenience of the foundation, so were we juggling many moving parts, and so the donors are aware that this wouldn't be done right away. So once you've voted on this, we will go back to the donors and talk about the timeline, and if there's anything that causes discomfort in that timeline, we'll come back to you. But we believe that they're pretty well aware of the need for the delay. When you look at $5 million, losing $500,000 of it for borrowing, you get a lot better investment in the gift if you're not borrowing money to pay for the construction. So I really just want to say how much I appreciate Dr. Follet's ability to think through this. And I know we keep coming back and forth with you, but it's always to get to the very best point, and I hope you'll be patient with us because there are a lot of moving parts right now.
So as I read this, am I missing something? This is a savings of $9.5 million over the course of the next 5 years?
I think, was it 9 or was it 6? $6 million.
$6 million on interest, 0.5 on issuance, and $3 million on not building a new building.
Not having to build the building, yeah.
Pretty good.
I try.
Great job.
Well, before we have further discussion, can I have a motion to approve the recommendation to proceed with the planning of the project as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Other than that, that's fantastic.
One thing I would like to make kind of a goal for us is to have the Daniel building completely done for the 100-year anniversary. So that's kind of our goal, timeline-wise, is to get all this taken care of so that you can be really proud on the 100-year anniversary with all these beautiful new facilities.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's a fantastic plan. Well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is 18-90, the legislative appropriations request. MSU's legislative request for the next biennium will be prepared during the next few months. The majority of the request is driven by historical enrollment and financial information. However, requests for special funding require support from the Board of Regents. Dr. Shipp will provide information concerning exceptional item funding the administration would like to pursue.
Thank you. As you know, last time I came to you when we did our LAR and I asked that you approve an exceptional item funding request for the Flower Mound facility, and though we met a lot of people and had a lot of discussions about it, this was not approved at the last legislature. Debbie and I have continued to work on this and would very much like to bring it forward again, particularly in that we haven't paid this year for the use of the facility and are just now incurring those costs. So it overlaps nicely with another legislative session, so I just need your permission to be able to proceed.
Well, before we discuss further, can I have a motion to authorize the administration to develop a funding request for the exceptional item presented? Second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'll tell you, I think that's a great idea. I think that, hopefully we're in the right temperament to get that done. I think it'd be fantastic. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18-91, holiday schedules for staff employees for the year 19. This item explains how the holiday schedules are developed and presents the proposed schedules for next year. Dr. Foley is available to answer any questions. Could I first have a motion to approve this item as presented?
So moved.
A second. Is there any discussion or questions in relation to this? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the executive committee items. We'll now move to the items under the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Dr. Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is 18-92, the faculty report. Dr. David Carlston, Faculty Senate Chairman, will present the faculty report, and then he will talk about a special guest, Dr. Laura Fadeli, who will join us later in the day to present her report.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to meet with the board, and Ms. Barrow mentioned that we're going really fast, so I'll try to slow things down for us.
Thanks a lot.
No, I won't do that. I do want to make a few comments and share a few things. Obviously, May is an exciting time for faculty. It's our spring graduation. We participated in the campus walk yesterday, which was a nice tradition to start off with our celebrating with our students, their accomplishments. Also, it's I believe you have TMP decisions that you will be making, tenure and promotion decisions. So it's an exciting time for faculty. It's a nerve-wracking time for them as they await your decision. I do encourage you to review carefully the documents that have been prepared. It represents a significant amount of life energy and a large commitment to the university. Those documents have been reviewed, and I know Dr. Johnston will go through the whole process, but they've been reviewed at multiple levels, and the faculty that will go before you have significant support from their peers and their administration. With that, I want to mention a couple of different things. First, I want to express some appreciation to the board and to President Shipley for the response that is occurring and has been occurring around sexual misconduct on campus. Obviously, the Senate was expressed concern through a resolution, and Dr. Shipley was very attentive to that and formed the panel that has been reviewing and is starting to review the university's response to sexual misconduct allegations. I certainly appreciate Regent Kasno, sorry, I'm a little flustered today, and Ms. Marks for participating in the initial meetings of that panel. I think it's very important and shows that the board is taking considerable interest in the safety and the experience of our students as well as our faculty and employees. Again, from a faculty and administration perspective, in their faculty survey that we administered last year, there were some concerns around those same topics expressed from the faculty side. So this panel will certainly be very important in addressing concerns related to both students as well as faculty and administration. Kind of piggybacking on those survey results, and the last time we talked a little bit about the potential and the growth of faculty on campus that are at risk of experiencing significant burnout. As you look through your tenure documents, you'll gain an appreciation of all of the efforts and the expectations that are placed upon faculty. So I'm very excited to work with Dr. Johnston this summer to talk about a plan moving forward. Dr. Shipley and Dr. Johnson met with the Senate and talked about the importance of this particular concern. And this next academic year, there will be significant time addressing faculty workload, work-life balance. There's compensation, load demands. There's a lot of things that are all tied together. And so it'll be important this summer that we get a good plan so that we can do a thorough evaluation of that. The downside is that we know that whatever comes of that investigation or evaluation, the recommendations aren't going to make everybody happy, right? Because nobody's out. You can't make everybody happy, right? But it certainly is an important effort to address the majority of concerns that faculty hold. I would also like to say that you're stuck with me again. We had our elections, so I'll continue to present as we move through next academic year. We did. Chuck Boltina is a professor in Dillard College of Business. He served as a treasurer for as long as I can remember, which at this time of the year that doesn't mean much, but he has served for many years in that role. this was his last year, and so I would be remiss not to express my appreciation to Dr. Boltina for his work and his perspective throughout the years. It's been invaluable. Let's see, try to make sure I not take everything off. To go through on my checklist. I do again want to express appreciation for our opportunity to meet with the board. Dr. Fideli is otherwise engaged at this point. She's not able to present at this time today, but she will be available later this afternoon. So would ask the board's patience in allowing her to present when she is able to attend her meeting today. Otherwise, welcome to entertain any questions regarding faculty concerns or faculty matters.
Any questions?
I did remember one other thing. I would be remiss to bring this up as well. I know that Dr. Gibbons is very concerned and expresses concern frequently in terms of the rising costs of providing the academic product for our students. I would say this, there has been some concern among faculty, and I know there's excitement in terms of the organizational chart reorganization and the bringing in of our Vice President of Enrollment Management. I think the faculty are excited at the potential to grow the university and to increase our student population. I think that there is some, that the bringing in of a Title IX individual is going to be very useful to the university as well. I do want to communicate, and would be remiss not to communicate, that there are some growing concerns among faculty about increase in administrative sense. So just as you have your discussions and deliberations about positions, to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Dr. Carlson. We appreciate your candid comments and the report from the Senate. Congratulations on your re-election as the Faculty Senate Chairman, and we look forward to continuing to work with you next year. Our next item is 18-93, the staff report. Mr. Newman Wong, Chairman of the MSU Staff Senate, will present the report. Mr. Wong.
My report will be pretty short. Our staff is still involved in the shared governance on campus. And one of the major committees we are on is the Title IX review panel. So we're very happy to be part of it to make sure there's progress made on the sexual misconduct issues on campus. And this is my last representation at this meeting, the staff, and my term is done. So there will be someone new coming to represent the staff. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wong. We appreciate having worked with you, and we look forward to the new person working with us. Item 18-94 is a student government report. Mrs. Maria Pena, outgoing SGA president, will present her report and will introduce the newly elected SGA president. Ms. Pena.
So this is my last report. I graduate tomorrow, actually, so I'm really excited. I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I've had here at Midwestern. I guess just coming off of the last meeting that we've had obviously a few things come up on campus at the student level. The issue of sexual misconduct was one of those things that kind of just set everybody off, really confused, I guess, with how we should address it as the students. Our dean did give us the idea that we should pick up the project that the counseling center did last year. They provided t-shirts, like a clothesline project to spread awareness. And so we took the project during the month of April. That's what we did. We did a clothesline project instead, and we provided pillowcases to provide, I guess, information about sexual misconduct on campus. And then we had elections in March, where we had two candidates run for president out of all the students, and we had Ellie come out as a winner. And then we also had our end of the year banquet where we celebrated all of the accomplishments that the students had. We nominated members of the staff, faculty, advisor, and I think that's it. Dr. Chris Tilker was the staff member of the year. Dr. Sarita Green was the advisor of the year. Velia Lozano works in the student center, and she was the staff. Yeah. And then Dr. Tilker was faculty, never mind, sorry. And then we had our student senator of the year is Jacob Warren. And then we also presented some gifts to our advisors this year. And so it was a nice way to end the semester on a very positive note. We had about 60 people show up, more than we usually did. So it was really good. And then the last event that we had as student government was we provided a vehicle for Finals Frenzy. Jacob, the gentleman that comes with me to these meetings, he actually got a free car for all of the students to bash during Finals Frenzy. And so that was really fun. I unfortunately wasn't able to go. I attended a funeral that day, and so I'm very excited to know that we're being left in good hands with Ellie. This year has been really emotional for me, and so I know that we're gonna have a good person take part of student government. I'm sorry. I've served in student government for 4 years, and if it wasn't for people like Shayla and Dr. Lamb, who really believed in me and pushed me to be, I guess, the best positive representation of our student body, thanks. I'm sorry. I don't know, it's been a real honor to serve this institution. I'm really proud of the work that, I'm sorry. Our student body has done this year. We've been through a lot of traumatic experiences as a student population. And so I truly hope and I pray to God that next year won't be as not as traumatic next year. I hope that we don't have to go through those things because I truly love this institution and I know that we are being left in good hands with not just like our board members, but people like Ellie. And I'm seeing like my fellow students from the Model UN team. Last year we didn't win outstanding delegation, but it's really good to see that this year they've made better improvements and stuff like that. I feel really exemplify our student body and help show just the hard work that we put in is what our students are benefiting from. And so, I mean, not to get emotional, but just leaving means a lot. And I'm truly grateful for everything that you guys do. And I don't mean to cry. I'm a crier. But it's just, I'm really grateful. You guys have been amazing. So that's all I have to say.
If I may, Maria is graduating.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Ms. Pena. We appreciate the work that you have done. You want to share for a second what you might be doing after graduation?
Yeah, I plan to go to grad school, into higher education. I would like to go to UNT, and so that's what I will be doing. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I don't know, I guess working more with student government this year and last year too, and I guess having more conversations with Dr. Lamb and Matt really gave me, I guess, the inspiration that I needed to actually determine whether or not if I really wanted to go into poli-sci or if I really wanted to do higher ed. And I think that this year truly defined what I want to do with my future. I would like to go into higher ed. I obviously have some ways to go and a lot to improve. But I don't know. I mean, I would like to keep helping students because that's what really made this year, I guess, memorable for me. And so I know Shayla wants to go there too for what was it, my MBA? Yeah. And so I mean, it's a great school. Their program is really good for higher ed. And they have a cohort for student leadership, and that's where I would like to hopefully get into. So that's what I will be doing.
Well, that sounds fantastic. And again, we thank you, Ms. Gunderson. We look forward to working with you and the new officers in the coming year. Thank you very much. Item 18 dash. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ellie Gunderson. I am very excited to work with everyone next year. Oh, I guess a little about me. I'm a political science major as well. So I'm reading a lot of my classes. And I'm a women's gender studies minor. I also played volleyball here for 3 years. And I'm so excited to step into this new role on campus. And I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Gunderson. Item 18-95 is the athletics report. Mr. Williams' report is presented in the board book as a point of information only, but I believe, Mr. Williams, you have a brief update on our spring accomplishments.
Yes.
I do. First of all, thank you for being here and thank you for the opportunity. It's been quite a year, certainly, and as we talked about, and I look forward to you know, great things going forward. Our spring folks, just real quickly here, tennis and golf just finished up with the regional, national, or NCAA regionals. Golf got 8th. You got to be top 3 to go on, so we're done there. And on the men's side, the women's finished 6th, like 6 shots out of 3rd actually to go on. But we have one individual who got 3rd, Emily Brennan, which is a freshman English. She's from England, and so she'll be going next week with Coach Ray to Houston for 4 days. It's a 4-round kind of a deal, 72-hole thing. So we're excited for her. Obviously, as you all know, our only national champion has been a women's golfer not too long ago. So we're hoping for good things for her and wish her the best of luck. Our tennis team, darn close to, we got it to the Elite 8. Girls got beat first round actually, but was very competitive. And then the guys got beat their first opponent, Bluefield out of West Virginia, and then got beat yesterday by Columbus State. So we're done there. So they're on their way home as we speak. But again, great. You know, anytime you go to the NCAA's, you know, people take note certainly, and of what we're trying to do, and we've got again great coaches on all this as well. So that's from the spring perspective. That's a little bit of what we've got going on right now. I want to take an opportunity to just real quickly to talk about the student athlete awards dinner that we had on April 18th. You know, we try to let the SAC group, the Student Advisory Athletic Council, do all of this, and I just want to commend our staff, Reagan Foster to begin with, in meeting with those folks, and it was a real treat this year. They handled everything. I thought it went extremely well with our athletes. We had about 302 athletes eating branding iron. That's not a bad deal. So that was really good. And something we did this year through a donor is we bought stoles for those that are walking tomorrow. I have MSU student out. I should have brought one to show you, but tomorrow they're maroon with gold, and so as a student athlete, we felt like that was something we wanted to start. So we will continue that as our student athletes walk the stage. So hopefully you'll see some of that tomorrow. Maroon and gold game was great. We were able to, with Kevin Crosno being there, and Warren was trying to be there to help us with the Robert Graves endowment. Again, thank you, Tony, Dr. Shipley, for allowing us to get to that point where we could actually endow some money to a defensive player, which is going to happen. We gave that to one of our kids there at the game. Jaden Cunningham will be a defensive player for us, a junior. So he'll get about $1,750 per year in scholarship from that. So we're very excited about that. With people, and about 81 people gave to that. So I thought that was pretty outstanding as well for the project. So Mustangs 360 continues to give our students an opportunity to get online with things that they're having struggles with. We've got another year on that, and I firmly believe that that's part of what we do from a life skill perspective. Again, life skills is extremely important to us. Life after athletics is what we'd like to talk about there a little bit, and so that's going to be another big part of this year coming. We also had a drug and alcohol guy come in, Dr. Earl Suttle out of Atlanta, and so we had 300 of our athletes there last Sunday in 2 different groups to talk about drugs and alcohol. And I'm not suggesting we have a problem on campus by any means, but I wanted them to make sure that we that we did, that they at least had a decision or two when this summer especially, when choices and decisions were made. So that's why we did that at this particular time. As you know, the Lone Star Conference continues to grow. 2019, we will have the Heartland. Dr. Shipley's been involved with those meetings. We have a June 14th meeting in Dallas. We'll talk about the scheduling of all the sports. They've hired a great consulting firm to help us do that. I'm excited to see how that looks in 2019, certainly, as all coaches are, as you can expect. I am just made an offer to our volleyball applicant. Hopefully she's going to say yes. So we'll find out about that today. That's one area that we've had to fill, and the other one is women's soccer, and I hope to have that the offer made by Monday or Tuesday of next week on that. So appreciate the committee and that worked with me on that. And then we just found out that Jake Landon is leaving. He is going to he's going to stay around and be a salesman for a company that is going to be with stuff like with Stryker. It's kind of an offshoot of Stryker, and so he's our strength conditioning coach. He'll be leaving, so we're in the mode of trying to work that out as well. So we'll get a strength conditioning coach. That's extremely important in what we do in athletics today. So with that, any questions?
All right, there are no questions. Thank you, Mr. Wade. That was report for information only. 18-96 is the DFW expansion update. Information is included in the board book, and Dr. Lamb will provide additional information and answer questions. Dr. Lamb.
Good morning. So you see the DFW update in your board book. Notably, we have actually moved into the facility. So that is a huge milestone after a long construction process. Some of the furniture has arrived and been installed. The balance of the furniture, my understanding, will arrive early next week, Monday, Tuesday timeline, and that will be installed. The audio visual is installed in the building. Our network is up and running. Our NCTC partner is already cleaning the building, providing maintenance for us, and so it's going well. We will be having a grand opening on June the 6th at 10:30 a.m. You'll receive more information on that in the coming days, but we will be having that grand opening, and of course everyone is welcome at 10:30 a.m. There in Flower Mound. Enrollment is looking good for the summer. And for the fall, we have actually exceeded for fiscal 18 the semester credit hour assumption we needed to build the budget. And so at this point, we've exceeded that with summer enrollment, and we're still enrolling for the summer. And so we feel good, again, about our decision to go into that market and how things are shaping up. Be happy to answer any questions.
What was our goal in students?
We weren't sure in terms of head count because we weren't sure what type of load everyone would take. So we built around semester credit hours. Our goal was 2,200, and right now we are sitting at 2,477, and we're still registering for summer school.
Very good. Any questions? All right. Thank you. This item is presented as a point of information only, and no action is necessary. Item 18-97 is the May 2018 graduating class. The administration recommends approval of the candidates for May graduation as presented. There are 734 students on the list compared to 699 in 2017. Chairman Sanchez, I move approval of the list of candidates.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Continue, Dr. Flynn.
Thank you. Our next item is 18-98, the addition of degree concentration and minors. The administration recommends the addition of an academic concentration and minors as outlined in the board book. Dr. Johnston, would you please review these recommendations?
Sir. The first one on your list is the agribusiness concentration that was made possible a gift from Carol Dillard, so that is being placed on the books and into our inventory. There are 3 interdisciplinary minors that you see out of the College of Science and Mathematics, particularly in computer science. They were open to a number of majors, and what I point out about these minors that, and you'll see more of them coming later in a series of signature minors, they really extend the career profile and the marketability of a number of different degrees, and that's the intent of these. The really nice thing about this and the others that we will bring later is that these are courses, areas of expertise that we already have, technology that we already have in the case of computer science, and capacity that we already have within a number of these courses. So building these minors, improving students' marketability and opportunities, and doing it within existing resources. So like I said, I think that's a great advantage to both students and a great thing for the university.
All right, are there any questions? Chairman Sanchez, I move approval of these additions as recommended.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Gibbons, please begin.
Thank you. Our next item is 18-99, housing and dining service rates. The administration's recommended housing and dining rates for 2018-2019 and comparison charts are presented in your board book. But Dr. Lamb, would you please comment on these recommendations?
As many of you recall, in 2012-2013, we had a study done by Brailsford and Dunleavy to look at our housing system and make recommendations, including rates. And they recommended at that time a schedule that we follow for the next several years to bring parity within the system and to bring our system in line with others. I'm happy to say we've largely achieved that at this point, and so the rate recommendations you see before you are less than we have asked to increase in recent years proportionally. One thing that we look at, well, a couple of points, I guess. If you look at the attachment, if you take Pierce Hall, for example, these are annual rates, and so what we are recommending is we increase 2.4% annually, so fall and spring. And so you see a $110 increase from request from $4,500 to $4,610. That is annually. And so that would be about $55 per semester. And you can see through there the largest increase we're asking for is around 3%, which is our McCullough Trigg facility. Again, that would be $150 for the year, for the fall and the spring. Similarly with our meal plans, that is annually. So if you look at the resident meal plans after tax, the Platinum Unlimited, that $35.60 to $36.60 recommendation, so we're recommending a $100 increase. That is a kind of the highest level meal that we have where it's unlimited. Students can go in as many times during a day. They can eat 3 meals, they can go in between meals and get a snack, get a soda, so all they have to do is swipe their card. That's going to be the best value that we offer. If you look at the Gold 200, that is a new plan that we would like to introduce this year. That's a 200 meal block. The cost there is $32.80 for the year, so that's actually 400 meals, 200 for the fall and 200 for the spring for that cost. And then you can see the other rates are very little increases recommended. One thing that we do look at every year is how we rank compared to schools with either similar profiles, such as Lone Star Conference schools, and then schools with which we share a number of common applications, common SAT and ACT scores, so other schools that we know our students are looking at when making their decision. And if you look at the attachment where we show the institution and then residence hall, traditional, semi-private. These rates, what we're comparing are our proposed 2018-2019 rates to these other schools' current 2017-2018 rates. So these other schools will likely increase rates as well, thus changing our relative position on here. So we're comparing proposed rates to previous year rates of other schools. And as you can see, we are right around median for traditional residence halls, which would be Pierce and Killingsworth. The median would be between MSU and Sam Houston, so we're right there. Our semi-private residence halls, which would be McCullough Trigg, we rank 13 out of 14, so we're the almost the least expensive. And then apartments, you can see for 4-bedroom and 2-bedroom, we rank well below median on those as well. And then the other thing we like to look at is what does our entire package look like, which would be incoming student or traditional residence hall, and the largest meal plan that we offer. And that is the next chart. And as you can see, our proposed for the year of $82.70 compared to these other institutions' current year, we rank just below median. Median would be somewhere between TWU and MSU. Likely we would fall lower than that after these other schools make their adjustments. You don't have any questions for me?
Are there any questions?
I've got a question. So on the resident meal plans, so existing, we have an unlimited plan and then a second plan option.
Yeah, existing, and I'm glad to see Matthew Park walk in. Just on cue. I don't know, but I bet Matt does. Matt, the question is that on the meal plans here, yeah, come on up here, please.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
The question is right now on the resident meal plans, do we just have these 2 levels or are we phasing out other levels to add these other 2?
Great question. We are phasing out a plan that is a block 250 because it was underutilized. And so through the market study that Chartwell's conducted for us, they're proposing the block 200 instead. So the gold 200 plan and the bronze 75 are new meal plans that we do not currently offer.
Right. What percentage of our residents right now have the unlimited plan?
About 40%, roughly between a third and 40%.
Okay.
It's really close to the silver 150 plan, which is actually our most popular. And then our current, the 250 block was the least favorable.
Okay.
Can they also use it off campus?
No, I'm sorry. They only can use their meal plan on
like
campus
Chick-fil-A
locations.
that you can't
But that's
use
here.
their.
We have Chick-fil-A here.
I do know that, but I was wondering if when you went any other place you could use it.
So the meal plans are only eligible to be used on campus. What there is there's a special program called a meal exchange or a meal trade so that the resident students can use their meal plan at the retail locations on campus, such as the Chick-fil-A or the Einstein Brothers Bagels, but those are through corporate relationships and partnerships that Chartwell's has formed with those other companies. So although the Chick-fil-A that's over next to Chili's and Kohl's, it supports our campus operation in some way through their leadership and tutelage, students aren't able to use a meal plan at that location. Good question, though.
But would you like them to pursue whether that could happen?
Well, I was just curious if that's
'Cause we-
an area of interest.
I've been places where that can happen, but never with a Chartwell's type overseeing us. So it might be interesting to ask whether if we went out and tried to have like a card swipe available with area merchants, whether Chartwell's would have that not fit into our contract.
I think anytime we can get our students out in the community would be a good thing.
But Chartwell's may not agree to that with the contract.
We can certainly ask, absolutely.
But so currently, if I had the unlimited plan, I could go to Chick-fil-A or I could eat in the dining hall.
Correct. And let me kind of clarify the nature of the meal trade or the meal exchange. There are limitations to those programs. I believe that they could use 1 meal exchange per day. Students could use 1 meal exchange per day at any of the retail locations. The intent is to bring them into the residential dining facilities, which is the Mesquite Cafe and Mavericks Corner. A person with an unlimited plan can go into the residential facilities at any time and have something as small as a cookie or an apple or something to drink or the full-blown meal and buffet. But when they go to the retail locations, they use 1 dining swipe and they get essentially a combo meal that has been identified.
Oh,
And so in the grand scheme of things, you can imagine this all has to deal with dollars and cents. And so what happens then is Chartwell's in turn has to turn around and pay those national brands or franchises. And so students are limited in the amount of meal exchanges that they can use, and I believe it's one per day that they could use for any of their meals.
So you know what my next question is. So what percentage of the students really go to Chick-fil-A or the other retail opportunities?
That would be something that gets you a specific number. I'd need to get back to you. It's quite a few, because what we found is that one of the most attractive things when we did our contract with Chartwell's was this flexibility that students could receive. And so they are now able to essentially spread their meal plan across the entire campus. What I've observed, this is anecdotal, I don't have a number behind it, is that we started to see students going back into the residential dining facilities, but I think that's attributed to some changes that Chartwell's was making based on feedback from the students.
I don't know if this is the time to bring that up, but it would certainly be neat, on other campuses and in other communities, if you wore maroon and gold, you would get 10% off if you went out and ate in the community. And is that something that we're looking at or we could approach? And again, the idea is to make them part of our community and not just stay on campus.
That is a good idea and probably something we need to look into more. We've had different vendors through the years that have done different types of promotions like that, but nothing large scale. Nothing large scale. You're raising your hand there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were
But I
saying
do have
that.
a question. For going back to actual housing, what is our percentage that we're running at right now? And what do we propose for?
Yeah, in the fall, we ran at 88%. This fall, we should be north of 90%. Our budget that we built this year based on these rates, do you know what occupancy assumption we used?
We assumed a 3% occupancy increase compared to the current academic year. So about 91% for the fall semester. It does drop in the spring because students graduate.
10 percentage points every spring.
Ms. Marks, one idea that we were looking at, it's kind of the idea of almost a discount card program, I think, and it's speaking to what you're talking about, and that is if there are vendors or partners in the community that would be willing to give students some type of a break, a discount, something for free. So that's actually something probably Shayla remembers speaking about in the student government idea, so I think that's something we can certainly look into. It would be a great partnership with our chamber and some other areas, I think. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I want to ask a question of our current and recent students in the room. How's the food? How well do you like the food?
How's the food?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I liked it when I had a meal plan. I think it was a good variety of things. There were days where it maybe just wasn't for me, and I would go and do the meal exchange. But I think the big piece with the actual Mesquite Dining Hall is that it's a bigger space where you can sit and convene, and more people will be in there, and that you can have different options as opposed to just going to Chick-fil-A and only getting chicken. So I don't know about Maria, but I liked it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it just depends on like what is being served that day. The Mesquite Dining Hall tends to have like a buffet type style. It's whatever is there. And then Mavericks is more like they have a menu. Every day they spice it up. They do something different. I personally like Mavericks a lot more, but it's not like the buffet style as Mavericks because they have just one select thing and you just go in and eat it. I think it just does depend on like what it is that they're serving that day. But I guess as they improve the way that they make the items and stuff like that and what they do provide for the students, like healthier options and stuff like that, students go to the cafeteria more. But I mean, I guess it just depends on the student.
Dr. Lamb and Dr. Pillay, a question I approached last time. My perception is that these are market-driven numbers and the price increase is market-driven. My perception is by what we think students can afford. What does our cost model look like? Does this pay for our costs? Do we make money on this? Are we losing money? Do we know how to do that? What is that?
We run a very, very tight budget. At these prices here, it would be tight next year. We would actually have to cut a few costs, not
So
compared to this
we
year.
subsidize this, the students are not.
No, you know what? Actually, we contribute back to the university through administrative overhead fees, and so the housing program itself does pay for itself, and it contributes back to the university. How much do we do out of that every year? 250, 300?
Yeah, I was gonna say several $100,000.
Should we be doing that? I mean,
Yes.
do we want to raise the cost to do that?
I think that certainly helps fund other areas of the university where we can minimize tuition and fee increases.
Well, it probably does, but it is putting the cost in one place and moving it to another. Is that what we're saying?
Actually, you really should be charging auxiliaries the cost of their use of accounting, budget, HR, purchasing, all those
Right.
back of the office kinds of things, because if you think about it, the auxiliaries are taking advantage of those areas, and the state and/or student tuition is currently paying for it. So auxiliaries should be standing on their own bottom. They should be paying for all their costs, and we don't want them to have an advantage and take the state dollars. The state wouldn't want that either. The state does not want to pay for auxiliaries. So we really have to charge them some kind of administrative overhead to pay for their piece of the pie in that way. That makes sense.
It does. I just don't feel totally comfortable. I just don't feel, it's okay. I mean, it's probably what we have to do. I understand, I agree with it. It just seems that we're still market-driven rather, I don't get a sense that I know what this really costs us and what, I'd like to see whether this is related to our cost increases because of inflation, cost of food, cost of personnel, or whether this is just the market will bear it and we ought to raise it more. I mean, it could go both ways. But I don't think there's an answer you can give me today. I'd just like to leave that
I
as
would say, looking at the budget and the costs that are identified to run housing, it's pretty close. I mean, I would say that there's not a lot of extra charge in there. I mean, you could respond to that too,
But that's my argument. My argument is not that we might be charging too much. We might be charging too little. I'm just simply asking for the comparison. Okay. Are there other questions?
One other question. So with the meal plan, at the end of this semester, like right now, how many students have used, totally expended their meal plans down to zero versus have a balance?
I don't know the answer to that.
There are two ways to answer that one, and I'll answer the first, and I bet Matt can answer the second. There are two pieces to the meal plan. They're the swipes themselves. When you look here at the Goal 200, for example, that means that they have 200 meal swipes per semester. Okay, and they may use 100, they may use all 200. The other piece to that is every student receives what's called flex dollars with their purchase, and so they may have 75 or 100 flex dollars that they can use in our retail spaces outside of the meal exchanges. Okay, so what you see at this time of year, for example, when students are getting ready to go home, whatever flex dollars they have left, they're making a run on convenience items. They really are. So they'll go to Einstein's, or they'll go to Starbucks, and they'll just load up on waters, on juices, whatever they need to spend down their flex dollars. So if you go into one of those spaces today, the shelves are fairly bare. But as far as the meal swipes, I don't know, Matt, if you have a better feel for how many unexpended meal swipes we may
Good
have.
questions, Dr. Sweat. So just what we do is the unused swipes on the students' blocks from the fall semester carry forward into the spring.
Correct.
So they roll forward. And what students then are able to do is if they found that they did not use all of their meal swipes, they can switch to a lower or different meal plan for the spring semester to try to balance the number for what they anticipate. For the most part, students are right at, they use or they're very close to using all of their primary swipes. They do have a tendency to hit the convenience items on campus with their remaining flex dollars for themselves and their friends and their family and everyone else. And just part of the contract though is we pay Chartwells for the flex dollars as they are redeemed.
Okay.
So when students do not use 100% of their flex dollars, that's actually assumed as part of the dynamic operating budget, and we assume about 10% total flex dollars are not spent at the end of the year. So it does feed the financial model in a way.
We can
But-
probably get you a better answer on how many meal swaps are not used.
I don't think that, I mean, if you don't have that information, I don't want you to, to pursue that. But I was just curious, because I know there's a flurry of activity at the end of the year in terms of trying to expend those dollars.
Sure. When we really worked with Chartwell's to devise the strategy for the meal plans, we tried to consider the convenience to the students and them having a lot of flexibility to meet their own needs and interests.
Are there other questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Lamb. Chairman Sanchez, I move approval of the housing and dining service rates as they were presented.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Continue, Dr. Gibbons.
Thank you. Item 18-100, the faculty emeritus status. While this item will be discussed in closed session, I do want to mention that the individuals recommended for emeritus status are now required to be reviewed and approved by the University Tenure and Promotion Committee. Dr. Johnston will present recommendations in closed sessions later today. While items 18-101 and 18-102, faculty promotion and tenure, will also be discussed in closed session later in the meeting, Dr. Johnston will present general information regarding the faculty promotion and tenure policies at this time, please.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder, as you'll see later, we still have the 2008 and 2014 policies in use. So the faculty that have been here a number of years and elected to continue under the 2008 plan. So there's two slightly different plans. Generally, the process is for someone hired on tenure and tenure track is a 5-year process. They submit an annual report each of those years, evaluating their teaching scholarship and service, or reporting out on those. When they compile their portfolio, they're eligible to first go up for tenure and promotion in their 5th year. The portfolio, again, addresses those same 3 areas of teaching scholarship and service, each weighted equally, with evidence to support their documents. The levels of review are begin with the department chair, then the college tenure and promotion committee, the academic dean for that college, the university tenure and promotion committee, myself as an independent review, and then my consultation with the president, and then it's brought to this board for final approval.
Before we move on, are there any questions for Dr. Johnston about the policy? All right. Thank you, Dr. Johnston.
Thank you.
Chairman Sanchez, that concludes the Academic and Student Affairs Committee items at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbons. We're going to take a very short 5-minute break. We'll reconvene in just, so don't go far.
time. I think one of those things, first of all, that I know Dr. Shipley and I are very happy to report to you is for the Boundless Opportunities campaign, we have 100% involvement of our Board of Regents youth. So we really appreciate the generosity of that. And it's been quite generous. The totals of pledges and outright gifts that you as our board have made exceed $230,000. So thank you very, very much for that. And I guess you can give yourself a round of applause. I'd also like to thank Regent Hesse for his leadership in reminding us of that. In the area next, I'm going to highlight just two of the quantitative reports that we have, because I want to allow some time for Dr. Shipley is going to cover a little bit on the campaign timeline. Where do we go from here? As we look at the comprehensive campaign comparison and new gifts and commitment report, again, our goal is $50 million in the 7-year Boundless Opportunities campaign. And as you can see there, through March 31st of 2018, we have, it's been amazing to see the amount of support that's come in, 36,190,568. That is 72.38% of the goal in about 22.62% of the expended time. And that it continues to be a very good thing. I think one of those things that we see is not only do we see very large gifts, we see a wide variety of gifts in this campaign. We see a galvanization of a wide variety of people coming up to the campaign. And I think Dr. Shipley's done a great job in being that catalyst to galvanize us in that. I use that term galvanization because it means to prod, to impel, to motivate. And so it's been neat to see that. One other report I draw to your attention is look at the fiscal year. You've asked us to have a fiscal year goal of $7 million. If you look at the report, fiscal year 18 monthly comparison of new gifts and commitments, you'll see again, this is a record, this literally is a record-setting year. We have more new gifts and commitments this year, and we're not even finished with it, than the previous high of about 23,800,000 in 2013-2014. We sit now at the end of March at 29,397,896 in new gifts and commitments for this fiscal year. That is 419.97% above the goal. And wouldn't we all love that if all our goals were like it, but a phenomenal year, and thanks to a myriad of people. Another thing I didn't notice until really I was doing analysis was this board report. You see on the left-hand side the gift types: bequest intentions, pledges, realized bequests, gifts in kind, outright gifts. As we look at the grand totals, every single one of those categories is at 6 or 7 figures or beyond, in 6 or 7. That's amazing to see that when we see that kind of, gifts that are coming in all areas. Our plan giving under leadership of Assistant, Vice President Rhonda McClung has done well. Gifts in kind are doing well. So that's the strength of the campaign. That's kind of a summary, in short, saying in a busy meeting, it's going very well quantitatively, and we thank you for your leadership and a lot of people involved with that. The next question is, where do we go from here? And Dr. Shipley is going to share with us a little bit more on the campaign timeline. One of those things that our campaign allows us to do now is, now that we've seen significant, very significant, historic traction on those larger goals, now we got to work on getting more people involved. Dr. Shipley, I'd like you to comment a little bit on the campaign timeline, if you could, please.
So I think what Tony's talking about is illustrated in the pie chart before the campaign pathway. And I think what you're going to see in the coming years is more emphasis on who is giving rather than what is being given. So we've probably reached some of our largest gifts for the campaign. You can still later in a campaign have large gifts arrive, but we made the dollar amount our early goal, but now our goal is really to engage as many alumni and potential donors as possible in this campaign. And so the amount of the gift will be less important. A good example is we'll be kicking off in the fall our faculty staff campaign, and that's going to be about enthusiasm and buy-in to the institution and not about who can give more. It'll be how many more people can give. So you might see contests between colleges to see what percentage of faculty and staff will be giving, and we really look forward to having a lot of fun next year with that campaign. In the timeline, you'll see we're not quite to halfway. So next year, you'll still be seeing Tony and me on the road with principal gifts. You'll see deans helping us with principal gifts. You'll see Tony's staff helping with that. We've uncovered a real need to do more work on corporate donations. We're lucky to have really strong foundations here, but we're seeing that it's often equipment or licenses that our faculty need in the classroom or in support of their work. If you think about the instrumentation we're going to need in the new health sciences building, we're going to need to supplement that with asks to corporations for that sort of instrumentation. So we're entering a phase when you're going to see possibly some new types of donors and more donors that have never given before, and that will be probably the pipeline that we follow. And then we'll end the campaign moving toward our centennial with a real focus on alumni. And a lot of social media outreach and use of technology to reach out to our alumni across the United States and reaching out also in person. So all of this ends up with a great centennial celebration, and we're going to keep you posted. We do not have yet the end of the year results, and I guess we'll have those in August, and Tony has to keep working on those. But thank you all for your support and your generosity.
Any questions for Dr. Shipley or myself?
I've got just
Dr.
one.
Sweat?
Can you give us some examples of some of the gifts in kind?
Gifts in kind, well, the largest ones quantitatively, are the software, particularly in the geosciences. Those are worth literally millions of dollars, and state of the art, what is needed, and our students are being able to expose to something that they will actually use. That's the largest one, Dr. Sweat. We also see, we will see, meals in kind. We will see equipment, as Dr. Shipley mentioned. It's very important in the hard sciences and also in health sciences too. Dr. Jeff Killian was able to, wasn't this fiscal year, but get some equipment for radiology area that can add up, and really save the dollars and makes a nice way for corporations to be able to give when they don't really have the budget and the cash wise.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question. Anything else? Well, thank you.
All right, so thanks. And as a reminder, the following contains a list of donors. It was helpful for us to be like thank you notes. We don't have as many to write this time, but the amounts are very impressive. So please write those. I'd like to you guys going forward. Financial reports. The administration recommends acceptance of the first quarter of 18 reports. Dr. Farley covers in more book. Any questions for Maryland? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, I move forward and accept his report.
We have a motion on the financial reports. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Gregg?
All right, 1815, the investment report. The administration also recommends acceptance of second quarter fiscal year 18 report. Dr. Farley's summary is also in more books. Any questions on the investment summary? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, I move acceptance of this report as well.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Gregg?
All right, 1816, public funds investment act compliance. The administration request we approve the same received by Dr. Farley and by Chris Stovall. Any questions on that? Hearing none, Mr. Sanchez, I move that we accept approval or approve of the same.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Please continue, Mr. Gregg.
All right, 1817, salary, title, position changes in the budget. The reports of personnel changes are presented for information only. The list of salary changes is prepared for application. Any questions on that? Well, you're getting awful easy.
I got one coming up.
Seeing none, Mr. Sanchez, I'll move the board ratify these changes.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Continue.
Now we'll be to 1808, instructional enhancement fee for Pine College, Local 5.
We're recommending that we increase the institutional enhancement fee for the Fane College of Fine Arts. And I apologize for not bringing it to you last meeting with the rest of them, but we did not know what the maintenance agreements were going to be on the new TV equipment, the TV studio. And now that we've gotten those prices in, we're coming to you with a reasonable increase on the instructional enhancement fee to cover those maintenance agreements. In addition, we have all these beautiful new pianos that are going to have to get tuned regularly. And so we need money to do that as well. So we're asking for an increase on Fane Fine Arts' instructional enhancement fee from $15 to $20 per semester.
Any questions?
Yes, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Remind me, is this just for those that are in the fine arts
If
program?
they take a class, even if they're not a major,
Yeah, right.
it
In
gets
that
charged.
Right, okay. Right. Take a class in the Fane
In the
Fine
Fane Arts
Got
College.
it. Okay, all right, just want to make sure.
Anybody else? Hearing none, Mr. Sanchez, I'll move approval of this.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. President.
Thank you, Officer Flyway. One more item, 1819, the motor vehicle registration fee, Dr. Lamb.
Thank you. You can see in your agenda, we are recommending an increase in the student parking fee for their annual parking pass of $20 from $90 to $110. Back in 2015, 2016, we presented information to the Student Senate at that time, and their parking fee was $50, and that Student Senate supported supported us increasing the student parking fee by $20 per year until such time that we generate enough revenue for a parking structure of some type. This will be year 3 of that annual $20 increase. Each year we've gone back to the Student Senate to visit with them about the upcoming fee, and so we did so this spring with the current Student Senate and apprised them of our desire to continue the $20 increase and had a good discussion with that group. They generally supported it, and we are bringing recommending this to you today.
All right, any questions for Dr. Lamb?
How does this compare to other schools?
When we began at $50, we were very low. Now we are getting closer to the middle. I'll have to look, obviously it depends on what schools we're comparing it to. Smaller institutions like us, it's around the middle, but I can get you a better answer on that. Larger institutions charge quite a bit more.
And Dr. Lamb, are you also looking at faculty and staff raising as well?
We've had conversations with both the faculty and staff senate about that. At this time, there wasn't a desire to move forward on that, but we have considered it, yes.
That's a delicate way of saying Dr. Lamb, at what point do we reach where we have enough revenue coming in to afford a parking structure?
When we did the analysis, it was around $150. Is that what you recall?
Right, $150 if you were going to do a double deck. It would pay for a double deck. As far as a full parking structure, multi-level parking structure, it's probably not enough unless the enrollment grows substantially. So, but we could do absolutely a parking structure that would be like a double deck kind of thing.
Do these fees take care of all the new parking improvements that we've done on campus? Or have they been paid for?
This fee right now is paying off the West Campus Annex parking lot, that new one. And by the time it gets up to the top of the $150, that lot would be paid off, and then that extra revenue would be available for whatever else we want to do with it.
So are we saying in 2 more years we'll be at our cap if they keep, if you go back to the Senate and they say yes?
Yes.
I know how sensitive this issue is, but I'm uncomfortable that the faculty does not step up to lead the way and share in this kind of cost. And so I'd like to say, I think the message we need to get across is that the students and the faculty, we're all supporting this because of the parking. And as a comment from the board, I'd like to see the faculty take a leadership role there.
Yes, sir.
The parking garage that we talk about, will that be specific for students, or will faculty and staff also be using it? I think that would go back into why they wouldn't want to pay if they're not going to be using it.
I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are there.
It would likely be for students because the location for it would be a further distance to the buildings than current employee parking. I think we'd certainly entertain employee parking there if there was a desire, but our general thinking right now is because of where the garage lot would be placed, the distance for an employee to get to their building would be further than what they currently have.
Can you refresh, are there designated places for staff parking now that are different from the student parking?
Yes, sir.
I've forgotten about that.
Right, we have 3 zones of parking. We have faculty staff parking, which are all the spaces marked reserved, which are generally adjacent to buildings. And then we have resident parking, which are for those who live on campus, generally in the residence hall area, and then commuter parking. And so, yes, the faculty staff parking or the employee parking are the spaces marked reserved.
In response to Dr. Given's request, could you at the next board meeting give us a sense of what the true costs are of paving and marking and policing parking for faculty and staff, so that we know whether there is an inflationary issue to address, so that we're absolutely sure that as the student fees go up, they're not subsidizing the faculty and staff parking. So I think it's a good time, since there hasn't been an increase for a while, it's a good time to check in on both student and faculty parking costs and how they relate to what we're charging.
Yes. One in that maybe we'll just have a football stadium built. We can put the parking garage next to the football stadium.
There you go.
Good idea.
Anybody else? Hearing none, conversation, I move approval of this week.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Anything more for your committee, Mr. Gray?
No comment.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. We're glad to have you here. Glad that you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Well, I guess at this point, we're going to break for lunch. We'll reconvene immediately thereafter, and at that point, we will bring up the audit compliance and back at 1 o'clock on time. Thank you very much.
So we're going to the Student Center. We're going to be eating in.
Okay. Well, hopefully everybody had a good lunch. We're going to come back into session. Just as a side note, so everybody doesn't stay up in pins and needles, Dr. Laura Fideli, she's not going to be able to make it today based on the time frames of what we have, so we're going to slide her over into the August meeting. So I miss out, and you guys will have a great presentation at that point. We're going to move on to the Audit Compliance and Management Review Committee. Mr. Hessen.
Thank you, Chairman Sanchez. The Audit Committee, is this it?
Yep.
Okay.
Because you're not having a committee meeting.
I understand that. Thank you. Thank you. I haven't done this in a while. I apologize. First item is 18-110, and it's the conflict of interest disclosure and compliance with filing requirements every May. Each region, other than the student region, is asked to confirm in writing that they have received notification of state and university ethics policies and have filed a personal financial statement with the Texas Ethics Commission as required by state law. An acknowledgement form has been sent to each of you, and another copy is in your folder for your signature. Please sign and give this form to Debbie at your earliest convenience. Additionally, does anyone wish to disclose any new potential conflicts of interest in accordance with policy 2.25 ethics policy for the Board of Regents? Okay. Thank you for all of this. No further action is required at this time. Item 18.111, compliance update. Mr. Stovall's update on compliance activity is shown in the board book, and he's here to answer any questions if necessary. Are there any questions regarding this report? There are none. This item is presented as a point of information only and no action is necessary. Item 18.112, audit update. Ms. Kidwell's update is also in the board book, and she is available to answer questions. Are there any questions regarding this report? Lee, no questions. This item is presented as a point of information only and no action is necessary. Item 18.113, petty cash and change fund audit report. This audit report is presented in the board book for acceptance. Ms. Kidwell, please review this audit with us.
Thank you, and if I may, I have two updates that were not known at the time that I prepared the update report. One is great news and one is not so great news. The great news is I got notification from the MSU internal auditors that I've successfully met all the requirements and I'm now a certified internal auditor. Yay! That was something our chairman asked me when he interviewed me and to do, and then also part of my improved quality assurance. So very, very happy to report that. The not so great news is the auditor in my office, Debbie Vaughn, has turned in her notice. Her whole family is relocating. Sorry to lose her, but extremely grateful that she's going to stay through the end of June, which means I'll be able to complete the fiscal 18 audit plan that we talked about last year. So bittersweet, bittersweet. Back to the audit reports, I have the petty cash and change fund audit that was actually on the fiscal 17's audit plan, but it ran over into this past year. Overall, MSU does have opportunities to enhance the internal controls surrounding cash, but it's important to recognize that internal controls don't eliminate all risks, but they reduce them to a level that management is happy with. And they are the responsibility of management, but happy to answer any questions. The audit reports in the board book. And if there's no questions, I ask that it be accepted.
Any questions from the board? Chairman Sanchez, I move the board accept this report as presented.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is item 18.114, Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Facilities Audit. This report is included in the board book for acceptance. Ms. Kidwell, please review this audit with us.
Thank you. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Facilities Audit is a collaboration between the coordinating board who came earlier this year and looked at the educational general space, and then there's also a component that the higher institution's internal audit function prepares, and so my report is here. It actually spanned 7 fiscal years, so there was a lot of information to look at, but based on the audit procedures, we concluded that MSU does comply with the coordinating board's regulations over facilities development and the real property projects. The report is in your board book, but I'll be more than happy to answer questions.
Any questions for Lee on this? Chairman Sanchez, I move the board accept this report.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 18.115, independent validation peer review. This report is presented in the board book for acceptance. Ms. Kidwell, please review this report with us.
Thank you. This is the independent validation that was performed back in December. that they were validating my self-assessment that I brought to the board back in November. And you might remember that I rated myself as, my internal audit function as generally conformed with all of the standards. And so the peer reviewer came in and looked at my self-assessment in several audit projects, and I'm happy to say that she concluded with my observation that the internal audit function is conformed with the standards that are required of internal audits, and that my continued quality improvement process will meet those goals. So I'm very happy to report that.
Perfect. Any questions? Chairman Sanchez, I move the board accept this report.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Esty?
Item 18116, policy manual changes. 3 policies have been rewritten or modified, and 1 policy is recommended for deletion. Mr. Maka will present items A and C, and Barry, why don't you do those together? Okay. And Mr. Vidmar will present item B, with Mr. Maka providing additional information if needed. We will stop for discussion between each item. Mr. Maka, please proceed with item A.
Item A is the first policy there, policy 3.340, American with Disabilities Act. And as it says in your board book, this really was an opportunity for us to modify this, bring this up to comply with applicable, particularly federal standards. We also put it, as you can see, in the policy format, which I think is very helpful. It identifies the policy owners. You might know most of the policies are going to have 1 owner. This particular policy has 2 owners, Dr. Fowley and Dr. Lamb. And the reason for that is, as you can see, the responsible offices are Dawn Fisher, the Director of Human Resources. She works under the supervision of Dr. Fowley. And you also have the University ADA Coordinator, who is Deborah Higginbotham, Director of our Disability Support Services, and she works under the supervision of Dr. Lamb. So they have responsibility for this, but we established, Chris Stovall, Lee Kibble and myself, and part of the compliance activities, established an ADA Electronic Accessibility Compliance Committee to help with this particular policy and also the second policy that I'll present. This was vetted by that committee, which is composed of representatives across the campus, faculty, staff, and anyway, we've been working on it for several months, and this is the product, and pleased with it, and recommend it for your approval. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have with regard to it.
Any questions for Barry on this item? Okay, there's none. Barry, why don't you go ahead and do item C. We'll come back to Tony on item B.
Item C deals with the web accessibility, and essentially what that requires is that our website and all of the web pages have to be compliant for an individual that has disabilities, and that is no small task. Again, this is an opportunity for us to get our policy in line with the federal law, state law, and regulations, and that's what we've done here. Again, it's vetted through that committee and across the campus. And essentially what it does, as you can see in item 2 there, Roman numeral 2, reason for policy, is that, we're required that all electronic and information technology be accessible to people with disabilities. And so that's what this does, is set forth the standards that we're to comply with. And again, it's in the new policy format. I should say, too, that we have scheduled both of these policies because they are kind of evolving, and it's complex, very important policies, but we schedule them for review, yearly review. Typically what we're going to try to do is schedule our policies, to be reviewed like every 3 years minimum. But these 2 particular policies we want to do within a year. But Again, you can see the background to the responsible offices, and related statutes that are involved in this. So I think it's a good revision of the policy and much needed.
Any questions for Mr. Maka? Go ahead.
What is the cost impact?
It's not small. We're doing an audit. I don't know, Lee might be able to address the cost factor of this, but it's, the compliance end of this is not minimal.
What is kind of our, Dr. Shipley, our kind of legal idea here? I mean, we're changing the policy to something we haven't actually costed and might not could afford. How do we address that?
We have no choice. Lee is keeping a federal or state mandate. We have to approve it. We have to move forward with it. Lee, didn't you and Marilyn work on a tally of what compliance overall is costing us per year?
Yes.
Do you remember that overall number?
Several million.
Yeah, and so basically the fines that the federal government could levy against us by not doing this, or that civilly lawyers could bring and sue us for not doing it, is kind of one of the reasons you have to do it, besides the fact that it's right for the people who are receiving
I understand, but I'm uncomfortable with approving a policy change and not knowing the cost impact, even if it is required. And I don't know what the timeline would be for requirement.
We're undergoing a audit starting Monday through the end of the month. The audit itself was only $5,400. We will know more when we get their report by the end of June, what the scope of the accommodations need to be. So once we have the results of this audit, we will then know what the costs are. So we'll have information for you in August.
Is there any reason why we can't delay approval of the policy until we see the cost impact? Is there a timeline the government has set up that restricts?
Yes, and we're past it.
What is that timeline?
August 13th.
August 13th to have a plan in place, and part of that plan includes policies in place.
And a corrective action plan.
I'm uncomfortable not knowing the cost. I mean, this could be millions, I don't know. I mean, it could be huge in changing the websites. I do not know.
I'm naive about this, but isn't the main cost not in hardware and software, but in human effort? I mean, I thought what we were doing is changing font size and changing approaches, and the more costly part of it, I believed, was the human effort required of faculty and staff to make these changes in their syllabi and on their websites, et cetera.
And we've already spent money to purchase a cascade management, a content management system that was approved in last year's budget, which is giving the tools to assist with ensuring that our web pages are compliant. And then a site improve contract was just signed a few months ago for another about $11,000 that will also give us the ability to self-monitor and self-correct. And so then it does become the human effort to make sure that we're utilizing the tools that we've already paid for.
But what I hear is you've addressed the monitoring and following through, but I don't have any feel for what it costs, and will the faculty desire compensation for the extra time required? How much extra time?
They won't get it. We may all desire it, but
When do we have to, if you have a policy, when do we have to be in compliance with it?
Well, as part of the policy that Barry just presented, the web accessibility policy, there is a timeline that the faculty have vetted and approved and that the staff have vetted and approved. And we are looking at full compliance in 2020.
And is that acceptable to the
Yes,
government?
absolutely.
But we don't know what the cost is today.
Not today, I'm sorry.
So what I'm hearing, and just let me clarify this real quick. I mean, hard cost, money spent with outside vendors is going to total at least 20 grand right now. Okay? Could be more, but 20 grand. And to Dr. Gibbons' comment, it is really about human effort. And I think at the end of the day, because we have to approve this policy, we have to get it in place as a university. I think it's important that we do that, but I also think it's important to know what we think the estimated cost is going to be. And in fairness, I don't think we can pinpoint that today. I mean, if there's $20,000 of hard cost to outside vendors known today, I can get comfortable with that. But I'm like Dr. Givens, I would like to know what we think this is going to cost, and I'd like to know that in the August meeting.
Absolutely.
And just to kind of piggyback on that, this is one of the things that we've struggled with, I think, not just in this board, but really across the state. There's a lot of unfunded mandates, right? A lot of things that we have to be compliant with that we don't get paid for. And I think in this one, I just would remind the board that of all the things that you have personal liability for, these are the kinds of things that you accept personal liability as a board member for not.
Yep.
You know, once you become aware that there's an issue, and there's a policy that is required, that requires action, it is set upon us to really do our due diligence and ensure that they exist. So, you know, I agree with you, Lynn, that that is definitely something that we need to know and have that information, but I would caution you guys into thinking like, if we're not gonna get it paid, we're not gonna do it. And those are the kinds of things that can get a board in trouble.
I'm just uncomfortable with, if I don't approve it, then I'm liable. If I do approve it, I don't know what I'm committing to. And I don't feel like that's a position I ought to be in. I feel like I need some costs in front of me to do that.
I think compliance is one of those things that keeps the lights on at MSU. So, like the fines that we talked about, now that I work in it, it's not something that you would want to be on the back end trying to pick up and fix. You'd rather just be proactive and figure out how you're going to pay for it.
So I'd like to make two comments. First of all, to Dr. Givens' lack of comfort with this. I think we've become a little bit inured to it because we have been hit with so many requirements. So it's unremitting. And so we have to take the institution through getting it done. I think if you're asking us to do a better job of when we bring the policy, make sure the costs are attached, we can certainly do that. And if you don't want to approve it today, Barry, can we wait and approve it in August, or are we so far behind that that'd be catastrophic? Is this what's under the OCR review agreement? Yeah, see, we've already been sued for this, and we're under an Office of Civil Rights agreement on a new timeline that's an expanded timeline. So I think now that we know you want the cost, it would be easier for us to commit to in the future we would do that.
Can we?
There's another point I want to make when we're done with that. Just to point out, when the faculty workload issue comes forward, you're going to hear a lot about how much this increases faculty workload. We're taking them through all these policies, they're having to change all their work, and it's unremitting also. So this is part of what's feeding in to the faculty workload and burnout issue. That's all.
I don't think we have much choice but to approve this policy. We're already under an agreement to implement the things we've got to do to become compliant. So I think this is the first step, is to getting there, and we need to do it. I don't think we're going to know the cost of this for several years.
Well, and Warren, that's kind of where I was headed with this. I heard 2020 for full compliance. If you had told me vendor costs, hard costs, were going to be $250,000, I think I'd be a little concerned. I heard less than 20. And because of that, I'm comfortable today voting for this. But I do agree with Dr. Shipley and Dr. Givens on the fact that we need to get cost identified on the front end and get ahead of it. And make sure, and look, estimates are good. I mean, just to understand it. So, Dr. Givens, I'll ask you a question. We're scheduled to vote on this here in a second, but we're scheduled to vote on all three of these proposals as a whole. Would you like me to present C as a separate line item to vote on?
I would, please.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about this issue or any of this? Okay. Mr. Vidmar, would you present item B, please?
Thank you. Item B is policy 4.134, and as in your board book, you'll see This is really looking at donations, gifts, and endowments. Essentially, it is to clarify administrative roles, responsibilities, and procedures. Some of the background behind this and some of our goals were to become more comprehensively congruent with our affiliated organizations in the MSU Foundation has a gift acceptance policy and the Charitable Trust, the MSU Charitable Trust does. This is congruent with that. Also, Mr. Maka did extensive research utilizing the Association of Governing Boards, the AGB, and also our peer institutions in their gift acceptance policies. It's pretty standard for an advancement shop to have this. We feel that it is an update and an enhancement of that really makes us not need the previous policy 4.164. This is more comprehensive. I'd entertain any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Vidmar on this matter?
I have one question on, it's on page 5 of this particular policy.
Page 5.
Under cash and total security market securities, and the second paragraph says, cash is acceptable in any form, checks payable may be paid to the university and shall be delivered to the vice president. Does this take out the foundation, or does this have anything to do with the foundation?
No, sir.
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Multiple references in this policy to the policy we're doing away with.
Yes, sir.
That makes sense.
There's multiple references in this policy to 4.162, which we're doing away with.
We were at 4.146, right?
Mm-hmm. No, 4.146 is honorific. That was, one we already have adopted. This 4.134.
Oh, 1.64, I'm sorry. I have my 64 back there.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Vidmar on this matter? Okay. No other questions. Chairman Sanchez, I move the board approve policies A and B as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
In addition, Mr. Chairman Sanchez, I move the board approve policy items number C, recommended as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Motion carries. Anything more from your committee, Mr.
Chairman Sanchez, that concludes the Audit Compliance Review and Management Committee.
We'll now continue with our agenda. Item 18-117, the University Leadership Report. Dr. Schiffman.
Thank you. So I want to talk about the two presentations that or conferences I've been involved in. Debbie Barrow was with me in the first, and we were invited to the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, April 25th, something like that, to present our strategic plan, and their goal was to see where our plan overlapped with their plan called 60 by 30, which is a goal to have 60% of the available population have a college degree by 2030. And so there were numerous goals that they had that overlapped nicely with our plan, and I think two things occurred from that meeting that were really important. The first is that they got to know us a lot better. So the only people who make these presentations are the chancellors of the systems and the presidents of the independent universities. So it gave they found this presentation particularly attractive because of our size and our lack of complexity, that we represent the regionals that are within systems in a way. So they rarely get to hear from a place that's as manageable with such simplicity of oversight as we have. They're looking at people at institutions with medical schools and law schools. And so it gave them a sense of how you could really drill down into some of the goals that the coordinating board has and show the individual impact on students. And one of the places that was most evident was when we overlaid our strategic plan with our case for our campaign, and we brought forward the example of the Pretty Scholars. Suffice it to say, I've never seen such enthusiasm as with this. They could see that our size of institution, with the type of donor support we have can make a tremendous difference in students' lives. So they want to hear more about the outcomes from this. They were very interested in the approach. They've encouraged us to look at a competence-based education as well, because the second thing they were terribly interested in was our relationships with community colleges. Behind us were the community colleges of the state getting ready to present. So it was great that we could truthfully say that our outreach to community colleges is sincere, it is effective, that NCTC was behind us. We could talk about building a location on site with a community college. They were absolutely thrilled that not only do our goals for our plan, but our actions overlay beautifully with their hope that more students complete a degree. And we made the impression that the best way to do that is on a community college campus with your partners there, or through such great articulation agreements that it's a seamless experience for students. So we got a lot of follow-up from the presentation. We had a lot of enthusiasm, and Debbie and I just wanted to get out of there without anybody yelling at us. And so we probably had questions by every single board member and comments by every single board member. So I think we showed them on the map where we were. We talked about our name, and we encouraged them to visit us because we are a well-kept secret, and we don't want to be, but sometimes we are. So I think it was a very effective presentation. Before I talk about what I just returned from the National Security Forum, is there any question about the coordinating board or that presentation?
Well, Pat Fallon,
Yes.
you know that one,
Pat Fallon's not on the coordinating board.
but he will be on representative.
If Pat is elected, he hopes to be on the higher education committee, the joint committee. This is actually a chancellor and a board like you that oversees the whole system.
But will he go to bat for us? No.
Will he go to bat for us?
Yeah.
Our conversations lead me to believe he will.
Good.
If
Who's
elected.
the chair
If
of
elected.
the coordinating board now?
The chair or the?
Coordinating board.
Oh,
Cha-
you mean the commissioner is Raymond Paredes.
It's still Raymond.
Yes.
Paredes is the commissioner.
And they have a brand-new chair of their board.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I can't recall. Yeah. So what I just returned from about 11 last night was the National Security Forum in Montgomery, Alabama, and I was asked to attend that as the civilian liaison with the Air Force here. And I was the only person from Wichita Falls, but probably of the 150 people attending the forum, more were from Texas than any other state. We have more bases. We have more support for those bases, but it was a beautiful blend of people from the United States and across the country. That the issue, it took place at the War College, which is a fascinating university that trains advanced airmen in topics of strategic thinking and global warfare. And it's a big think tank with very famous professors talking about all aspects of war, including the morality of war and the questions you ask yourself around war. We had an unbelievable slate of visitors. Heather Wilson, who is the Secretary of the Air Force, was there in person. We had just heard from our SMAC committee that they met personally with her and found that their best meeting during their visit to Washington, D.C., so I was able to speak with her for a few minutes and tell her how much her visit meant to Shepherd Air Force Base, and she mentioned that she will be back to Wichita Falls. She will come to Wichita Falls to tour Shepherd Air Force Base very soon. We met with the Vice Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We heard yesterday from the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force, so these were very high-level presentations and conversations. The reason it's important for someone like me to be here and for universities to know about this is that it gives us trends, not in political thinking, but in military thinking and military strategy that has to do with how we all think about our future. And the biggest takeaway for me is the new emphasis on alliances. And these alliances, we looked at a thing called quadrilateralism. I'm not going to go on and on about this. I'm only going to talk a few minutes, but it's really fascinating. And quadrilateralism is how we are teaming up with India, Australia, and Japan to protect the South China Sea. And that is because where we were once the only world power, or the unmitigated world power, we're now seeing the reemergence of Russia and the emergence of China. And so a lot of this meeting is about how our national security theory is adjusting to the threesome of United States, China, and Russia, and how divergent our response to that theory needs to be based on what the countries around them do. So we are creating alliances with as many countries around India as possible. We're creating alliances all over Africa, and it's in part the Muslim relationship. And then we're creating stronger coalitions between our armed forces. So what I think we'll see in the future is what we're teaching our students, which is that it's not a single type of thinking, it's an interdisciplinary thinking, it's a multifactorial way of considering answers to things. And that's actually what the armed forces are trying to do, is not work unilaterally as the Air Force in the United States, but act as the Air Force in line with the Army, the Navy, and others, the Marines, to deal with different national populations in different configurations. So it underscored the importance of what we're doing with INJEPT. It underscored the importance of our English as a second language service that we provide the Air Force. It underscored the importance of our relationship with the Air Force. And there is great optimism that there will be intelligent growth in the armed forces in the years ahead. So it was definitely worth the time investment and a great learning experience. That's all.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Shipley. Item 18-118, appointment of nominating committee. Our bylaws require the election of a chair, vice chair, secretary, and member at large of the executive committee in August of even-numbered years. I'd like to ask Mr. Hessing, Dr. Sweat, and Ms. Burks to serve on this committee with Mr. Hessing serving as the chair. Absent any objection by any of you. The Board of Regents will now go into executive session to discuss items 18-119A, consultation with attorney, 18-119B, real property, 18-119C, gift or donation to include gift-related naming, 18-119B, personal matters to include faculty, emeritus, tenure, and promotion, as well as annual performance review of the president and director of internal audits, and 18-119E, deliberation regarding security audits is allowed by Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 072, 073, 074, and 076. For the record, the date is May 11, 2018, and the time is
1:34.
1:34. Dr. Shipley, Mr. Maka, Ms. Barrow, and Mr. Vidmar may remain for the first part of the discussion. Mr. Ayers, we will excuse you for the discussion of the first item. Dr. Johnson will let you know when we're ready for you. Please stop the webcast.
Until? That's where I want to go.
Okay, perfect.
We'll
still be open.
I moved
Yeah.
out of work and
Where is it?
or just that we
North side of Kemp.
that we
You get to see more houses.
Are you
It's at the
ready, sir?
bottom.
That's
I
It's
am
at
ready.
Bonnet Hill.
I know where you're talking about.
All right, we're back in session. The closed session is complete. The only items discussed were the items announced and no votes were taken. Item 18-100, emeritus status. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend the following individuals be granted emeritus status upon their retirement from MSU. Ms. Martha Crump, Assistant Professor of Dental Hygiene, 24 years. Dr. Frederick Davis, Associate Professor of Dental Hygiene, 28 years. Mrs. Mary Jo Distel, Assistant Professor of Nursing, 21 years. Dr. Rebecca Dodge, Associate Professor of Geosciences, 10 years. Dr. Everett Kindig, Professor of History, 47 years. Dr. Emily LaBeth, Professor of Sociology, 40 years. Dr. Stuart McClintock, Associate Professor of Foreign Languages, 19 years. Mr. Gary Morrison, Associate Professor of Radiologic Sciences, 30 years. Dr. Yoshi Fukusawa, Posthumous Professor of Economics, 40 years.
Well, there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18-101 and 102, faculty promotions and tenure. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend the approval of the following. Granting tenure to the following individuals. Shochana Ayanagata, Ph.D. in social work. Eric Koger, MFA in theater. Adapo Kwan Leong, Ph.D. in criminal justice. Granting tenure and promotion from the rank of associate professor to associate professor,
Say
from the rank of assistant professor, to the rank of associate professor to the following individuals. Tim Acuna, Doctor of Education, Curriculum and Learning. Angela Cartwright, Ph.D., Curriculum and Learning. Yo Gu, Ph.D., Engineering. Kina T. Kutaria, Ph.D. in Management. Emily Reeves, Ph.D., Curriculum and Learning. Whitney Snow, Ph.D. in History. The granting of promotion from assistant professor to associate professor to the following individual. Philip Blaylock, Doctor of Education, Curriculum and Learning. Granting promotion from associate professor to the following individuals. G. Bernard, Ph.D. in Mathematics. Martin Camacho, DMA in Music. Steve Hilton, MFA Art. Jeff Hood, Ph.D. Mathematics. Terry Patton, Ph.D. Accounting. Kathleen Williamson, Ph.D. Nursing.
So there's a motion, a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Item 18-119C, gifts or donations, gift-related naming. Is there a motion?
Yes, sir. I move that we name room 324 in the Dillard Business Administration Building as the Warren Ayers Family Computer Lab in honor of benefactors at Midwestern State University alumni Warren and Pam Ayers. Mr. and Mrs. Ayers' recent gift made possible the updating of this room into a fully functioning computer lab for the Dillard College of Business Administration.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Other than that, it's fantastic. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. So the motion carries. Item 18-119D, performance review of university president. Is there a motion related to this item?
Yes, Chairman Sanchez. I move that the term of Dr. Shipley's contract be extended by one additional year through the year 2021.
1 week.
Put her in bag.
Did I say week? Year. One additional year through 2021.
There's a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None. The motion carries. Is there any other business to come before the board? If not, that concludes our meeting. Before we leave, I would just tell you guys it's been my sincere pleasure to work with all of you guys. You are a fantastic group of people. It has changed me to be here with you guys. And so I truly appreciate your friendship. I know you'll be at graduation tomorrow, or some of you will. If you don't have your parking pass, please check with Debbie. Your next regular board meetings will be August 2nd and 3rd. We are adjourned.
Maybe a cheer for our chairman.